For you LM4 or PTS, KWA, etc. owners who are having double feed issues, here is my solution that actually, for me, worked. I've tried a lot of the others. Now, there are 3 types of double feeds that happen. And this is really only for one of them. One is when the bolt loads a BB. It doesn't fire. You pull the trigger. The bolt will recycle, but that BB didn't leave the hop-up chamber. And then the bolt will cycle and load another BB, and you have 2 in there. And the second is when the bolt will bounces. So some people have said that the bolt will load a BB on one trigger pull, bounce back, load another BB. I've never had that happen either. Apparently the fix for that one is to get an A2 reel buffer, so it's heavier and it'll slow down that action, and that prevents the bounce back. So the issue I had, number 3, now I didn't have the issue with the original KWA magazine, but the PTS magazine. What happens is these feed lips deform. So you can, I don't know if you can tell, but this is the fixed one, and this is one I'm about to fix. So I don't know if you can tell, it's slightly, the unfixed one is a little bit wider. And compared to the KWA, it's also a little bit wider. It's not, the sides aren't parallel anymore. They kind of open up into a slight V shape. So here's what's going on. I'll try to explain it in that drawing. So when you first get the mag, the feed lips are like this, which is fine. So the BB comes in here and is held like this, as it should be. And that's just an approximation. So after you load it a couple times and you force the BBs into the mag, what happens is, you know, these will spread out, and eventually you end up with this. I'm exaggerating again. And the BBs are more like this. So instead of being stacked on, you know, more at a 45-degree angle, they're stacked almost next to each other, and when the bolt comes, it'll grab 2 BBs. So both of them go into the hop-up chamber, they have nowhere to go, and they end up in the hop-up stacked on top of each other. Okay, so we have to get this back to narrow, right? You want to get back into this shape. So how do you do that? Well, there's 2 things we're going to do. Number 1 is we're going to take a heat gun and warm this up and squeeze it back to where it was. Now you have to do that very carefully, and I'll tell you how. The second thing we want to do is on the inside of here, we're going to add some aluminum tape and 2 thin strips on each side to change the shape of the inside, because even after we bend this back, we want to force these 2 BBs to get closer to each other, a little bit closer. Why can't we just do one or the other? So I've tried just the tape, and it works for a little while, but then it fails again after you load some more BBs, because this shape is still in a V shape. Why can't you just melt this closer together? Okay, so those are the 2 options instead of doing both. Well, number 1, if you just add more and more tape, that might work. I don't know how many layers it would take though, and after a while, and this is because I've only tested this for a couple weeks, after a while that tape may deform and you have to do it again. And if you want to sit there adding 10 layers of tape, be my guest, but I'm not going to do that. Second is you could just melt or soften this and bring them really close together, but then your bolt might not fit through here. So I don't think that's a good solution either. So something about this plastic and the shape of the mold is one of 2 things. They either need to make the plastic not deform after you load it a couple times, but then that also might make it more brittle, or they need to change the shape of the inside of these cups that pushes the BBs together. And I think that's probably the best solution for PTS, but maybe they don't even know about this. I don't know. So about the tape has to be non-deformable. It can't be like packing tape or Scotch tape. So I use this aluminum tape, because once you remove the backing, it's basically aluminum with a little bit of adhesive, so it won't deform. Now again, I've only had this fixed for a couple weeks, so I don't know what the long-term solution. I believe it will last. Okay, so let's start with the tape. The order doesn't matter. I'm just going to do the tape first. So it just so happens this is 1 width, and if you take that, cut it in half, cut each side in half again, you end up with quarters. you end up with 4 of these quarters. And where's my 4th? Oh, here it is. Okay, so I got those 4 pieces. And I'm going to take some tweezers, peel the backing, take the tweezers and push it in there. So that's lining the inside of the feed lips. And then I'm going to take this Q-tip and then shape it so it's pressed firmly against the sides. These are very sticky, they should not fall out. Alright, we'll do that. There's one side. I'm going to do this 3 more times. One on the other side, and then repeat. And we'll have all 4. Here we go. I've done both sides with 2 pieces of tape each. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. All that matters is when the BB goes in there, it passes by both layers of tape. Kind of important is that it doesn't stick out here, because if it does, as you load them, you might scrape the tape free. So if it does happen to stick out a little bit, you can probably just take an X-Acto knife and shave off that part. Obviously, don't take off any plastic from the feed lips themselves, but remove just the tape. Now the second step, part 2. This one takes a little bit of a fine touch because we're going to be using channel locks and a heat gun. So we want to soften this plastic a little bit, just enough to bend them inwards, because we need to get rid of that V shape and have these sides more parallel again. So to do that, we're going to grab this at about halfway or the top 1/3, roughly in between those two, like this. And I'm not squeezing, I'm only putting enough force on the handle to hold it there. And then maybe just a little bit more. So I'm going to aim, you don't aim the center of this heat gun right here, because that'll melt everything. So what I'm going to do, because the heat gun comes out in it's pretty focused, it comes out in a circle about this big. I'm going to aim it here. And that way the edge of it will heat up only the lips and not as much on this side. So I'm going to aim the heat gun here. And these heat guns are very powerful. If you just hold it here, this thing will melt very quickly. The way the plastic will work is it's firm, and then firm, 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 a little bit soft, and then liquid. It's going to be like that last step melts really fast. So aiming here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to point it there for a couple of seconds, remove it for half a second. Point it there for a couple of seconds, remove it for half a second. And by doing that, this will get soft. And when you feel this, remember, you're just holding it just a little bit beyond enough to not drop this. You will feel this kind of squeeze almost by itself. And at that point, look at your feed lips. Take the heat off, look at your feed lips, and when they start to come in a little bit, to the point where they're slightly like this, right? Just slightly. Because more than likely they might bounce back. Now if you go too far, your bolt may not make it through, or the other part is your loader will have a very hard time loading BBs. And I'm talking like that. If it's just ever so slightly inward, that might be ideal, because as you load BBs, it's going to straighten that out again. Let's try this. This will be my 3rd time doing this, so I think I've gotten pretty good. Alright, I can feel maybe it's just about starting to get a little soft. I'm going to give it a little bit more heat. Okay, careful now. This is the part where you can do too much. Take a look at it in the white background. Alright, it has bent. I'll turn off my heat, hold it a little bit while it cools off. Just in case the heat made the adhesive soft, I'm going to press this down again. Now if you take a look at this, see how they're just ever so slightly bent inward now? I'm pretty happy. So that's pretty much it. That should work. Here's the PTS mag that I fixed. And there we go. No jams. No double feeds.